regular meeting of the Florence Planning and Zoning Commission. Ms. Benitez, will you take the roll?
Yes, Chairman. Commissioner Capolongo,
Here, present.
Commissioner Pro,
Present.
Commissioner Simmons,
Present.
Vice Chair Frost,
Present.
Chairman Pranzo.
Present.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, discussion, approval, disapproval of the minutes of the regular meeting conducted on March 18th, 2021. Questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I reviewed the minutes. They look fine to me, and I would move for their approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second that motion.
I'm sorry, who said that?
Either one of us.
Oh, okay. So we have a motion by Vice Chair Frost, second by Mr. Capolongo. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. New business, presentation, motion to approve with conditions or deny preliminary plat PZ 2127 by Pulte Group. Ms. Benitez, do we have a presentation?
I have a short presentation on that one.
Okay,
Unit 59A is part of the larger Unit 59, but it was split into three, A, B, and C, in order to split up the number of lots between them. These are all part of the Merrill Ranch PUD, and it includes 93 single-family lots. We did have, I'll just say for all of them, we did have police look through them. There was one unit that we are going to add a stipulation on, but it's not the one I'm presenting about right now. The police chief, Bruce Walls, did not see any issues with 59A. That concludes my presentation for this unit.
what was the
Instead-
police chief's reservations?
His purpose for looking at the plats was to see if the open spaces had any visibility issues. And for Unit 59A, he did not see any that concerned him. He did
Good.
see one in 59B, but we will get to that when the action item comes to play.
All right, I'll open it up to the commission. Questions and comments?
Mr. Chairman, I have a general comment and I guess I'll do my soapbox thing to start with. And that is, I think that we as the Planning and Zoning Commission are really not seeing the full package on these projects as they come through. I think that we're in a way tasked to look at livability and aesthetics and everything else of these projects. And so, but we never get to see like trails and paths if they're planned. We never get to see any playground planning if they're planned, the landscaping, the monuments and things like that. We get to see the general layout and the traffic circulation of those other things we don't get to see, which I think is doing a disservice to the community. And so I guess Maricela or Keith, I would commend that to you to see, and I don't know how the other commissioners feel about that, but it seems like we're just seeing part of what we really should be looking at here.
Well, you make a good point, Chairman Frost. And this is something that's been on my mind. So let me just poll the commissioners. How many of you know what a planned unit development is?
Well, I have kind of a vague general idea of what it is, but not I guess not the nuts and bolts of the specifics.
Yeah, I agree
Okay.
with that statement.
All
Yeah,
right. Well, what a planned unit development is, it's basically where a developer goes off the books. He's not working to our town code articles. He writes a different book that applies to his development only. That's why they call it a planned unit development. I guess the second question to ask, and I almost already know the answer to it, how many have read the PUD for Anthem?
Mhm. Have not.
Okay, I'll tell you what we're gonna do. I've given this a lot of thought, and I do not want to hurt the client or the applicant, however you want to look at them. But this is something that has been bothering me since we looked at a development where we only got the preliminary plats with a developer we didn't know. And so what I'm going to do is table PZ 2127 pending the submittal of the finished plat, along with the commissioners receiving copies of the PUZ for Anthem. Now, Mr. Baxter, does this hurt you in any way?
Yeah, obviously it does hurt Commissioner Pronzel because it's not a requirement to submit a final plat to Planning Commission. Final plats are submitted to Town Council. They are approved and reviewed at Town Council. Commissioner Frost's concern regarding this has a lot to do with landscape plans. Landscape plans, again, is not a requirement for a preliminary plat submittal and approval. Your concern or you're wanting to know the knowledge of the Anthem at Meadow Ranch PUD is valid. It's something that you guys should understand. I kind of maybe take a little exception that the developer is going off the books to try to do that. This is not just a single subdivision of 100 homes that this developer has invested money and time and workforce into. It is a development that is strategically planned with amenities ideally located and approved as part of the PUD. A PUD is actually a contract as part of a development agreement with the city that the city has agreed to, that these are where these items should be placed. Commissioner Frost and I have asked about these things a number of times as far as amenities that are being provided there, open spaces and view corridors. Again, those things have been detailed out in the PUD. These additional open spaces where we are putting tot lots or for putting playgrounds or for putting gazebos or sitting areas are in addition to what was approved through the PUD originally. There's nothing in the PUD that identified these areas as a neighborhood park. It is the client, Pulte Homes, going above and beyond what was originally required as part of the PUD to provide these amenities in these areas. So I guess as far as you're saying to be able to table it, yes, that is your prerogative, but the things that you're asking are not requirements as part of the PUD process.
Okay, but the question is, does it hurt your process? Does it hold you up? Does it stop you?
Yes, it does, because we will go to a pre-plat, and then once we have pre-plat approval, we submit to the town engineering department and to the planning department final plats, construction documents that show how the roadways are going to be built, that shows the grades of each lot, that shows the grading in these retention pond areas. It shows the uses of those retention pond areas. And basically at that point in time, once we have a final plat that goes to town council, we can then start planning our construction schedule and also planning our sales in those areas as we
Okay,
record
so
that final.
you're telling me that by tabling this, in order to get the final plat, we stop you from these reviews?
The planning commission is not responsible for review of a final plat. That is a town council
I
item.
got that part. I'm asking you, does it stop you from doing what you need to do?
Yeah,
The-
go ahead, Marcelo.
Yes.
Mr.
The
Chairman.
answer, oh, go ahead.
And I didn't mean to imply that with my comments that this project should be stopped. I think this one is too far down the road to put a halt to it. I'm just saying, I believe that the town's process needs improvement because we, as the Planning and Zoning Commission, under the current process that has been established, miss seeing so many things that I think we should be looking at. This being one of them. And I agree that I don't think we should put the brakes to this because of these things that I'm bringing up now. These are just general comments that I think should be changed for the betterment of, I believe, the community and to help us represent the community better.
Yeah, well, my question still is, how are we putting the brakes to it? I
Yeah,
Yes,
haven't got a
because-
yes or no on that.
Yes, you will be putting the brakes to it because I am not going to spend time and money engineering something that may change based on a discussion from preliminary plat approval.
I see, but you'll take that risk with the council.
When we get an approval on a preliminary plat, we show that we meet the PUD requirements. And then when we take the final plat and engineering documents for review from the town staff, they have to review it from, does this work? Does the retention basins hold the water? Do the roadways, are they graded correctly? We get into the nuts and bolts of how something's built. They have that prerogative to say, Pulte, this is not designed correctly, we can't accept it. That it falls on me as their engineer to correctly do these things according to the town code. And we have been doing that for 15 plus years out here. In reality, as long as we're meeting the contractual requirements of the development agreement and the PUD, it's really hard to not have an approval based on that information in the future.
Okay, well, I want you to understand where I'm coming from.
Oh, I totally do. Commissioner Franzo, I
I
understand.
know,
what you're saying.
I don't think you do. The time is getting ripe where we're gonna have developers come in front of us that we're not familiar with.
Correct.
We're familiar with you. This is a Chinese fire drill as far as I'm concerned. Everything you submit is always the way it needs to be. When we get new developers in front of us, it's not gonna be that way.
You're absolutely correct.
And
I do recognize that. Yes.
yeah, so if I don't kick up a fuss about this now, it's never going to get changed. And I have all the respect in the world for the council, but when it comes to the planning and zoning part, I really don't think they do the due diligence that you receive here at the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay.
So, all right,
But Mr. Chairman, with that, there are 4 additional items that I would like to put on all of these plats for general requirements. I forget the proper technical term, conditions, Maricela. And these basically relate to things that the town is looking at right now and going through and part of them relate to water and the correct use of water. So I'll just read them off. Number 1 would be, and this is aesthetics as well. Number 1 is very slopes in the basins for variety and aesthetics. What we've seen here is very straight slopes on all these basins. That doesn't look very good. Number 2, some of these basins we don't know, but some of these basins will probably have turf in them to make them playable as a park. So my second one is there's no turf on the slopes. That's a waste of turf. Number 3, and all turf must be usable and playable, minimum 50 feet perpendicular in all dimensions, no monument turf. In other words, no more of these little squirrely, turf deals that they're only usable for rabbits because people can't play on them, they can't do anything on them. And then the number 4 is no walking or biking paths that terminate at a street with a vertical curb or stormwater inlet. This development, because my wife and I bike and walk in it, there are many instances where there's an easement with a storm drain underneath it with a biking path on top of it. And when you come off that biking path onto that road, you are in a storm drain inlet. It's a vertical drop off. And I had grandchildren almost bite it right there on a bike because they're dropping off vertically and you can't tell it until you're right on top of it. And so I would like to not see that happen ever again. That's way, way dangerous. So those are the four stipulations that I would propose on all of these plats, these three that we're looking at tonight, and in general, any plat.
Okay, my notes are not the best, so when it comes time to make a motion, I sure hope you remember.
My
Yeah.
question, if I may,
Ms. Benitez?
is if these conditions, would it be that Vice Chair Frost put forward, would it be something for when landscape plans come forward and we bring them to P and Z for design review?
But we never see landscape plans.
Mr. Harmon?
The
Nice
planning
to see you.
commission, the planning commission has the ability to place any stipulations they feel appropriate on a preliminary plat. And what these would be stipulations that would guide the applicant in their preparation of the final landscape plans. And from that standpoint, they would be legitimate to do at this stage. And for that matter, thinking about it a little bit more, the new stipulation put forth by the police department would actually be appropriate for all future plats also, including this one, even though it doesn't directly impact this particular one. But just to have a standard list of stipulations or conditions of approval is very common in the industry. I've worked in communities where there were as many as 30 standard conditions of approval that went on every preliminary plat. And just because it just laid out the ground rules so that everybody had the same ground rules start to finish. I'm sure Jared is familiar with these. He's probably seen it in other communities also, where they do the same thing, where they will have standard conditions of approval. And so things that, even though it impacts the landscaping, that isn't submitted until the final plat, this gives guidance to the applicant as how to prepare that landscaping plan.
And I actually believe that the things that I'm stipulating to really should be in the landscaping regulations for the town. And when they eventually get written into that detail, then they don't need to be a stipulation any longer. But at this point, I would stipulate, I guess.
The problem we have here, gentlemen, is that we have very specific landscape requirements that are part of the PUD. I don't know the detail of them, Commissioner Frost. I guess the only reason I'm bringing that up is that we can't stipulate something that is contrary to what's stipulated in the PUD. So that would be my only concern about those stipulations. In general, I have no problem with what you're saying at all. I have no problem at all. I think it's good guidance from that standpoint, but we can't contradict what's in the PUD if there is a contradiction. And we can jump through those hoops as we prepare the landscape drawings to see if there is something that contradicts what you're stipulating tonight, Commissioner Frost. So that would be my only concern. I think you recognize where I'm coming from with respect to that.
Mr. Harmon?
And that's easily addressed. Basically, there could be a standard landscaping condition of approval, A, B, C, and D. They would cover these 4 items with the addition of, unless otherwise contradicted by the adopted PUD.
Yeah, that'd be the add. That's what I've seen in the past,
Right.
Larry, is that addition to the stipulations. That way you're covering your bases, that you get out what you're desiring, but at the same time, you're not contradicting an approved PUD document at that point in time.
Well, what we're talking about is an improvement to the quality of your product in terms of livability. So I'll leave it to higher powers than me to sort that out. But these are things that need to be brought up. If it's contrary to the PUD, then we need to come to some kind of an agreement.
Correct.
All right, any other questions or comments?
So we're not tabling this at this time then?
No, no.
Okay.
You're right, I should be saying that this is not tabled. Although
for-
every bone in my body says we need this ability to see the final plat.
So should that agenda,
These are the rules we're working under right now.
so should that be an agenda item for the next meeting, maybe or just so that it gets in?
I'm not sure how that procedure should work.
Otherwise, like you said, nothing's ever going to get done if we don't, move.
Yeah,
So,
and like I said, it's not that I don't trust the town council, but they have many other things on their plate, whereas we are focused on
Yeah.
really one item. Mr. Frost.
Just one more question of the applicant. I noticed along the southern edge of this development, there's a tract there, and some parts of it are used for stormwater retention, but some parts, they have no designation at all. Are they just going to remain deserty open space?
It's for the power line that runs along highway, Commissioner Frost. There's a high tension power line that we are unable to develop under or near. So we
Okay.
had to leave it and keep it as an open space along there. If you drive highway just
Right.
along Felix Road intersection, you'll see those power lines.
So I guess the simple answer to my question is yes, you're just leaving it as natural like it is right now, or are you?
Natural open space. The only landscaping that we would ever be touching would be in the retention basin. That's
Okay.
off the knuckle. The remainder would be left as open, natural desert open space over
Okay.
there.
Mr. Harmer.
And maybe as a future meeting, especially if you have a light one coming up, we could try to orchestrate a work session and include the town attorney. And we acknowledge, staff has acknowledged before that our code is hurting in a lot of respects. And, so we can look at possibly initiating an update to it, although because of staffing right now, that may be a little while off. But I think it might be a good idea to go through a work session with the town attorney and talk about PUDs in general, maybe specifically AMR, but keep in mind that you have probably more than a dozen, maybe 24 PUDs that have been approved. Previous councils, they have development agreements, and they are all locked down in various stages as far as what can and can't be done as far as conditions of approval. So maybe it'd be a good idea just to kind of have an educational session and cover those.
I don't disagree. My point, though, is that my fellow commissioners are, not all of them, are aware, slightly or unaware of how the PUD plays a role. So when something comes before us and the knowledge of that PUD is vacant, then what are we really looking at?
Well, and hence the need for the work session, just to kind of answer those kind of questions.
I'm all for it. Sorry, Mr. Baxter, about the fire drill, but it's something that needed to get done.
No, these are great discussion points, Commissioner Pranzo. I'd rather have a more educated understanding between all of us on how this really works. So I'm a partner here to help not only my client Pulte, but also help the process along here. I've been here working in the town for 15 plus years with multiple planning commissions. So I really value your opinion and want to see what I can do to help it along one way or the other.
Thank you. Okay,
Chairman,
Mr.
just-
Frost.
Just one more comment, and it's the normal comment that unfortunately you've heard a lot. When I look at the grading of the retention basins, and Jared, I'm looking at in our packet, well, in your plan set, it's called sheet 7 of 7, the retention basins. And I can see where the retention basin that's kind of down that central corridor, basically bounded on the north by lots 42 through 52. And I can see where you've mounded areas in there to separate it into 2 separate basins. But what it does is I think it's going to impede our police department's ability to successfully patrol that area because of what I can, and of course I'm looking at plans that are at a very small scale, but I don't think they can see either off the cul-de-sac to the west, which is in Unit B, or off the road in Unit A, down through that area sufficiently to be able to correctly police that area.
Vice Chair Frost, if we're talking about tract C,
Let me see. Yes, absolutely.
all right. We have discussed this with Bruce Walls. This is the one where it comes. We discussed having a pathway so police can get down there, as well as bollard lighting in order to increase visibility, especially at night. And he agreed that these were a good compromise in order to help them get back there if they need to.
Okay. And you said that this comment related to one of the other plats, but it looks like this is the most impacted one right here.
So I can extend this condition of approval for final, sorry, in the final plats of Unit 58B and 58A. The plan shall include bollard lighting along the pathway into tract C to increase visibility in the area.
And our applicant is okay with that?
Correct. Yes, I've discussed it with Pulte at length. We do that in Unit 357. It's a standard that we feel like we accept as a condition of the approval of pre-plats here. The bollard lightings with the trails going down to the bottom of the retention areas.
Well, I won't fall on my sword on this one then, but just the normal comment that I make, it's difficult to police an area you can't see into.
Agreed.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Mr. Frost, I'm gonna leave it to you to make the motion.
Okay. Turn in my packet so I get the right. I'll make a motion to approve preliminary plat PZ 2127 Merrill Ranch Unit 59A with the stipulations, the one explained by planner Benitez, requiring lighting along the path down there for visibility. Second one is to vary the slopes in the basins for variety and aesthetics. Number 3, no turf on the slopes. And number 4, all turf is to be usable and playable, minimum 50 feet perpendicular dimensions with no monument turf. And the last one, no walking / biking paths that terminate at the street with a vertical curb or stormwater inlet, so that we don't have bike crashes and things. And Maricela, if you want, I can send these to you.
Yes, please.
And so that's the motion, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Who was that?
Commissioner Capelongo.
Okay, so I have a motion by Vice Chair Frost, second by Commissioner Capelongo. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Moving right along. Presentation to approve with conditions or deny a preliminary plat PZ 2128, Merrill Ranch Unit 59B. Is this going to be redundant?
Pretty much, I think.
I feel like we sorted everything out in this first discussion.
That's what I'm thinking, Ms. Benitez. Any questions or comments?
I think I do, but with so many papers to turn through, let me see where this is at. Yes, I do have a question. There isn't the intersection of, wow, magnifying glass. The intersection of National Way and Sunview Drive, right there where 3 roads are coming together. Is that a roundabout?
Correct. There's a roundabout at that location.
Okay. That's what it looked like, but it just didn't say it on the plat. So I wanted to make sure there's no confusion.
That roundabout is actually part of a map of dedication from National Way and Constitution Way coming down there. So it is not in the area of the plat. It's actually part of a map of dedication for that roadway itself.
Any other questions or comments? the motion that Mr. Frost, Vice Chair Frost made earlier on Unit 59A, do they carry forward for 59B and C?
Are you looking for a second?
Well, no, I'm asking Vice Chair Frost.
Yes, please.
Okay. You're going to have to say it, and we'll just combine these two together and be done with it.
So, Mr. Chairman, do you want to entertain a motion for both B and C?
Yes, because it's redundant. Unless somebody is opposed to that, might as well get it done because it's all the same thing.
I agree.
I'm happy to make the motion, but if somebody else wants to, that's fine as well.
I don't think anybody remembers the stipulations.
Just read back the minutes.
Well, and I think what I'll do is I'll move approval of preliminary plat PZ-21-28 and PZ-21-29, respectively, Merrill Ranch Unit 59B and 59C, with the same stipulation stipulated to in 59A.
Perfect. I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
those opposed? Mr. Baxter? Ms.
You guys are great.
Sepulveda,
Yeah,
I appreciate your patience.
no, the Commissioner Frost can remember all that stuff is great. I commend him on that. I was having a hard time jotting it down myself.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
I tried.
I tried.
All right,
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.
thank you. And
Commissioner
for,
Pranzo, do you need anything else from us tonight regarding anything else at Anthem that you'd like to discuss, or are we okay?
I think we're okay. There's nothing else on the agenda.
No, okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Right.
Okay, old business.
Mr.
Discussion
Chairman.
decision to determine the commission wishes to return to in-person meetings in the town council chambers. Well, should we rejoin live or should we not? I'll leave it to you guys.
Well, personally, I would prefer to meet in person. As I've said before, I think we missed something, not, being together, reading each other's body language. I think there's an element missing, although this is very productive, but I would prefer to meet in person. That would be my desire.
All right, why don't we just poll each commissioner? Mr. Simons, how do you feel about the matter?
Well, on a slightly personal note, as the next meeting will be my last meeting with this commission, for those of you that don't know.
Okay, so you get to determine our fate.
I am moving at the beginning of June. I think it would be nice to have one more meeting in person with everybody before I leave the commission. And so my vote would be the same as Commissioner Pro, whether we should return and have at least one more meeting in person.
Mr. Capolongo?
I can go either way. If there's, I don't know, meeting in person seems kind of pointless if the public's not really involved. But again, I can go either way. I'm easy.
Chairman Frost, you're the deciding vote.
I don't know that that's true, but Commissioner Capolongo, even when we go back and are meeting in person, those meetings are always viewed by the public. That they transmit them out real time, and then they're viewable on the website as well.
Oh, no, that's completely understood. But
Oh, okay.
If it's just us sitting around talking to each other,
Yeah.
it's we can accomplish that here. But again, I'm easy. I'm whatever everybody else wants to do, I'm okay with on this.
Yeah, I'm to the point now that I think that the restrictions and everything that we're hearing about COVID in Arizona is, the numbers are very, very, very low, and restrictions have been taken off religious meetings and other gatherings, and graduations are occurring and things like that, I'm more than happy to go back in person. But if we wanted to keep doing it this way, I'm fine with that too. But I'd be happy to go back in person.
Okay, well, then that decides it. I will make the motion. Does this require a motion?
Not really, Mr. Chairman. We did it by consensus with the HDAC.
Okay, well,
And we
then
have a consensus, so.
I think we're unanimous. It's time to rejoin life.
Good.
And that means we have to change our clothes before we go to work, but okay.
Means you gotta wear pants now, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, well,
Oh, that's a deal breaker. That's a deal breaker.
okay. So next meeting, and hopefully we will have a meeting before Drew goes away. I'd like to shake his hand and thank him for being a part of this.
I'd like
Yeah.
that.
It will be so arranged.
Okay. All right, moving right along. Presentation, information only, general plan update.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, the process is moving forward. We actually have a internal meeting next week to start getting into more details of the land use plan itself. That's the part of the general plan that most people look at and spend any time on. Although there's a lot of other elements that are required by state law, the land use plan itself is the one that really guides how development will take place in the future as far as what goes where. So that initiates next week at staff level with input from economic development and various other staff people and planning. And once we come up with a draft, and it'll only be a draft, then we will start going into the public information process and public input process. And of course, you all will be deeply involved with that as it moves forward.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, moving right along. General town update.
I have nothing specific, Mr. Eaton. I'm not sure if there's anything you wanted to jump in on in this regard.
I don't think so. There's nothing really, anything major right now. Are you going to go over the grinders?
Yeah, I'll handle that,
complex
yeah.
and stuff. So yeah, no, I don't have anything in additional to what Larry's going to have.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, then moving right along, Grinder Sports Complex.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, you asked for just a brief update on this project. As you're aware, the major general plan amendment was approved last year by the town council, but the properties are, of course, in the county, were in the county at that time and still are. The process right now, it includes Pinal County, the town of Florence, and the Grinder team as far as putting together a pre-annexation development agreement. That is getting close to fruition, it's our understanding. Being a legal end of it, we're not directly involved with that. However, we have been meeting recently in the last week or so with the Grinder team as far as initiating the annexation process for their properties. So they are indeed moving forward right now. The reason why Pinal County is involved, of course, is because some of the improvements that are being discussed would remain in Pinal County's jurisdiction, at least for the time being, while the project moves forward. So it will be a three-way. It'll take Board of Supervisors approval, Town Council approval, as well as the Grinders group.
Question, Mr. Harmer. Once the annexation process begins, will there still be requirements on them in terms of performance before final annexation?
Well, that's why it's a three-way agreement, because yes, Pinal County is involved, and so certain aspects of the development could potentially begin under Pinal County's jurisdiction and be transferred to the town upon completion of annexation.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All right, Future agenda items.
There are, and I guess we could have kept Jared on just to beat him up a little bit more, but there are several plats that they are moving forward with into final plat, that the preliminary plats have legally expired and have to be renewed. So those will be coming back in front of you. I believe Maricela will doing that on the 20th.
Yep, that was the plan.
Yeah, that's the current plan. I've forgotten how many there are total. 4 or 5.
There are only 2 that need to, well, now there's 4.
Yeah, there's 4 plats total. You'll have those on the 20th. Based on, tonight's direction, we will go ahead and add the additional stipulations to each of those renewals, as well as any new preliminary plats as they come forward. Other than that, we will be, as we said, we'll try to work with the town attorney and set up a work session. It may or may not be for that evening. It depends on agendas as they come forward and the attorney schedule. I thought we had already forwarded copies of the AMR PUD to all of you, like sometime last year, but
No,
we can do that again. That's not a problem, so that you have that in advance, just to make sure that you get a chance to read through it before we meet with the attorney to kind of go through the overall process. And then if there's specific questions on AMR, you could also address those at that time.
great. Any questions or comments? All right, call to the public. It looks like there's no public.
Yeah, we have nobody
And
attached.
there isn't. Thank you, sir. Call to the commission, current events only. Any good news? Must be Florence. Okay. I don't have any either. I don't know of any special events coming up. Mr. Frost.
Yeah, just probably good news from many people's point of view, but it looks like I will be out of town the first meeting of June. So the 3rd of June, I don't think I'll be in town for that meeting.
I think it would be appropriate to make certain that we have all 5 of you present for a work session with the attorney. So we'll work around that.
I couldn't agree more.
Good idea.
And the alternates.
Which, by the way, alternate Adam, who's joined us tonight, will become full commissioner as of the first meeting in June.
Perfect. Perfect.
I will also send her the PUD so she can look over it for when she
Great.
joins the commission.
Okay. Any other current events?
Actually, quick question. The next meeting is the 20th, correct?
Yes.
And we're not having any kind of work session or anything.
I think based on the typical calendar of the attorney, that would be difficult for him to pull off in 2 weeks.
Okay, no, the reason I ask is if we all should be there, I'm unavailable on the 20th. I'm actually playing over the river bottom. Wasn't thinking that, I figured we were doing this kind of a meeting. I could just pull out, take a break and do this, but so I won't be there for that one.
Okay.
Mr. E.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and commissioners, and I threw out an email real quick to start that process of some training. I just got word back from Lisa that it's going to be a couple of weeks, so I would absolutely say it would be probably the last meeting in June before we would be able to do that.
Okay. As long as it takes place. That's what I'm most concerned about. The more literate this commission is, the more effective we can be.
Agreed.
All right. Any other current events? All right, then I will make a motion that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned, gentlemen.